Welcome to another episode of Geek Money Life, where we talk about money and how to make sense out of your dollars. And so in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about something that's been practically a dream for me and something that I thought I would never achieve until later in life, or probably maybe even my whole life I'd have. And that is being 100% debt-free from credit cards. This is something that's absolutely amazing for me. It took many years to achieve, and it's something I really work hard to do. And so today I'm going to be sharing the realities of being debt-free from credit cards, and at the same time giving you my personal pros and cons on it. So let's go ahead and start with the first and biggest pro, and that is freedom. Whenever I first saw my credit utilization at 0%, I couldn't believe it. It's like I just got released from jail. Because as anyone who has credit card debt knows, whenever you are in credit card debt, it feels like you are in jail, it feels like you are a slave to debt, and it feels like you're never going to escape. And with such high interest rates building up, for most people, that's basically going to be their life. And whenever I saw that, I just couldn't believe it. And it actually took, I would say, a few days before that really sunk in, and maybe like a week or two later to realize that, yeah, I really have zero credit card debt. I basically am now free to do other things with my money and my time. And so the second big pro that comes with this is obviously you're no longer wasting your money on all these high interest rates that these credit card companies are charging. Because as anyone knows, whenever you have a credit card, you're using that to pay for things today that's going to take you years or potentially decades to pay off later, and it's going to cost you way more. And I don't think for the majority of people that we've actually been trained to understand what the real cost of that is. And so whenever you factor all those costs that you're paying in interest, especially its compounded interest over time, all that money could have gone into so much better things. And not only that, since it is compounding on interest, you might have paid like $100 for something, and maybe 5 years down the road, you probably would have spent like $500 to $600, including all that interest. That is, if you actually paid off that credit card. And over time, as you're putting more and more debt on that credit card, you probably don't even know what you actually paid off, that you originally purchased with that credit card. And so just not having you waste thousands and potentially millions of dollars on credit card debt is such a huge thing. And it's one thing that I wish we were taught early on before we started using credit cards and not realizing how much money is wasted now and way down in the future. And so the third major pro of not having credit card debt is stress. So I think anybody who's had credit card debt could relate with me here. You try to sleep at night, but then you're thinking about your credit card payments. So maybe it's near the end of the month or maybe beginning of the month for you, and you're trying to figure out, how am I going to pay my credit card bills? And in some cases, you don't have enough money, so you have to take your credit card from one to pay off another credit card payment. And then over time, this compounds, because now it's not just one credit card or two credit cards, it's multiple credit cards. And then when you have a large amount of credit card debt, it feels like you're never going to get out of it. And so that mental stress usually leads into emotional stress, which then leads to physical stress. And so I think anybody who's been in a large amount of debt, especially credit card debt, can relate with me here. And all of those things does affect your health in the end. So I've been there where I'm thinking about it, and at times I try to relax and everything, and sometimes I might actually use my credit card because that kind of like makes me feel a little bit better. You spend money that you don't have so you can feel better about all the debt that you do have. And so it's this really vicious cycle of constant stress. And obviously, if you have this for over a long period of time, it could actually shorten your lifespan because your health is sorely being affected in a very negative way. And now that, you don't have this mental, emotional, physical stress, at least for me, I sleep a lot better. My days are much happier. Physically, I feel better. I don't have these like stress headaches and tension all around. And I just don't think about it anymore, which is absolutely crazy. Whereas before, this stress was, at times like constant. And I am so happy that not having that is actually helping me to be a healthier person. So now that we looked at some of the pros of being credit card debt free, let's go ahead and look at some of the cons. And I know what you might be thinking. There's cons to having no credit card debt. Yep, there is. And that's something that I did not expect. So let's go ahead and start off with the first and biggest con with being credit card debt free, and that is temptation. So once you pay off all your credit card debt, a few things are going to happen. The first thing is your credit utilization is going to be at 0% or near 0%, which means that you're going to have more available credit. So since you don't owe any of these credit card companies or owe very little, you're going to have a lot more of your credit available for you to use. Which leads to the other thing, and that is your credit score's gonna go up. So with just these three factors alone, you're definitely gonna have more credit, or in this case, more debt that you could get into. And that's gonna be really tempting because you probably haven't experienced this before ever since you first got credit cards. And then adding to that is another huge temptation, and that is other credit card companies can see your credit history and they see that you're in a much better spot to actually get into more debt. And so because of that, you're going to get a lot more offers to increase your credit, or I would say debt limit. You're going to get more credit card offers and so many other things to entice you and tempt you into getting into more debt. And the worst thing here is that since you have more available debt or credit that you could actually get into, you'd probably end up getting into more debt than even before because, well, things are more available to you now. And so that is something that I think it stays with you. And that's something you're going to have to battle with practically your entire life because it's now going to be a lot easier for you to have access to credit or debt. And unfortunately, this is something that's not going to go away anytime soon. And so that's really the first big con with being credit card debt free. And so another con that you might experience is FOMO, or fear of missing out, and keeping up with the Joneses. So I think for a lot of people, they use credit cards and debt to actually impress other people. So in this case, you see somebody doing something really cool, going on great trips, buying this brand new computer, just getting all this stuff to have a lifestyle that they can't afford. And well, you want to have that too. So you don't want to miss out on those things. And similar to that is keeping up with the Joneses. So you see your neighbor with a brand new big screen HD TV in 8 or 12K, and boy, you want that. Or maybe they have a brand new lawnmower, a new car, some clothes that is definitely way more expensive than yours. Well, you're going to have that too, and you're going to break out your credit card to get that. And I would definitely say this is one of the stupidest things that you could do with your credit card. But unfortunately, a lot of people do that. And so they get into this cycle of getting into debt to impress people that really don't care and don't matter, you know. And so that's something that I've been guilty of myself. I've definitely purchased a lot of things because of FOMO and trying to keep up with the Joneses when honestly, it didn't matter at all. It just put me into way more credit card debt. And so the final con with having no credit card debt is an emotional thing. And I know this sounds weird, but just think about it this way. You've probably been in credit card debt ever since you've been able to get a credit card. And this has probably been something you experienced 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 years of your life. And so in this case, this is something that's become a habit and something that you are emotionally used to. You're emotionally used to spending using your credit cards. You're emotionally used to being in credit card debt, having to pay these bills month over month, and that really does something to you psychologically. Like even myself, sometimes I still think about, oh, I have to pay off my credit card bill, you know? And it's kind of weird. And just as I mentioned a little bit earlier, just seeing it, it really doesn't feel real. And at the same time, you always feel like tempted by it. And so all of these things really affect you mentally and emotionally over the long term. And very similar to the whole stress thing that I talked about earlier, being a pro, it could also be a con in a different way. And so a lot of times I'd probably, compare this to like maybe somebody who's been on drugs or an alcoholic or anything like that. It's a combination of physical, emotional, and mental. All of those things go together. And I would also compare it to gambling as well for people who are habitual gamblers. And so if you could kind of compare it to those things, it's very similar to being, stuck in credit card debt. At least that's the way that I see it. And so those are my thoughts on being debt-free from credit cards, the realities of it, and the pros and even cons of being debt-free from credit cards. So if you actually had any thoughts on this and you've experienced this yourself, whether it's a pro or a con, be sure to leave down in the commentary below. And if you did want to see more of my debt and money videos, I do have an entire playlist for that. I'll leave that in the description area as well. So as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you on another episode of Geek Money Life.